Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a chill day today. In this video, we're going to discuss DeFi Kingdoms expansion into Avalanche and why I think it's going to be a very powerful catalyst. And if you're like me, you don't have time to play the game, but you see the potential and you want to extract as much value as you can, well, make sure you watch the video until the very end. I'll explain exactly what I'm doing with my own portfolio, what kind of passive strategies we can use to maximize our returns from this expansion. And if you're into making passive income, whether it's through DeFi, GameFi, or the metaverse, make sure you pause the video and subscribe to the channel because I'm always covering new opportunities and sharing my personal strategies. And before we shift over to talking about DeFi Kingdoms, I quickly want to cover a project that I'm personally working on. In fact, this is what I'm going to be busy doing during the bear market. Provided that my outlook gets validated and we get a pretty strong Q1 performance, I'm planning to retire and spend most of my time working on crypto-related projects. And so with this NFT project that I'm currently working on, it's not like your traditional PFP project. And by the way, we're looking to change a lot of the artwork here. We're going to redesign the monkeys, so stay tuned for that. But honestly, that's not our main value prop. What we're going to do is basically use the funds that we make through the mint, and instead of just pocketing them like other teams, we're actually going to allocate the majority of the funds to a treasury. And by leveraging all the DeFi analysts that I've assembled to my team, we're going to go out there and look for yield opportunities. And once we secure sustainable and regular yield from these DeFi protocols, we're going to use that yield to purchase in-game assets and also digital land within the metaverses. And so at a bare minimum, you'll get access to a DAO where you'll be able to get high quality alpha from very experienced DeFi and GameFi investors. But if things work out as we anticipate, and we're able to purchase assets, earn a yield on them, plus we're earning yield from the DeFi protocols, the hope is to evaluate the treasury every month and disseminate that yield to NFT holders. And I'm also thinking about other bear market plays that could potentially bring in revenue, and I'll talk more about that in upcoming AMAs. But initially, our focus is going to be strictly DeFi, GameFi, and the metaverse. So if that resonates with you because you also think DeFi, GameFi, and the metaverse is the future, then make sure to check out the Discord channel by clicking the link in the description below. And I would encourage you guys to become active participants because I want this to be an open collaborative. And by that, I mean I want everybody to have an opportunity to contribute. And not only just contribute, but potentially become a full-time member of the team. Now with that plug out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this video. Alright, let's go ahead and dive into this video. First and foremost, I want to give credit to Sammy Punch. Make sure you give him or her a follow on Twitter. And the reason I'm using this write-up is because it's clear, concise, and he does a really good job of outlining why this expansion into Avalanche could be potentially huge. I was discussing some of this with members in my private channel, but in addition to the reasons I came up with for why the Avalanche expansion would be mega bullish for the Jewel token, Sammy Punch actually thought of even a couple other reasons that I hadn't thought of. Now he states in the early part, the purpose of this article is not to show you guys how to poise yourself for the Avalanche expansion, and I would argue that you can by simply buying Jewel token and staking it. And if you watch my previous video that I did on DeFi Kingdoms, I talked about how you can place a leverage bet on the ecosystem by buying some of the heroes. If you guys are interested in learning about that strategy, make sure you click the video link in the description below. Now we're going to skip over the part where he addresses and deflects some of the FUD, and we're going to go right to the portion where he starts talking about why this expansion will be a very bullish catalyst for the Jewel token. Now the title of this segment is called Purpose of Expansion, but ultimately all of this stuff is going to bring more people into the DeFi ecosystem, and ultimately that's going to increase demand for the Jewel token, driving the price higher. So firstly, attract new users to join the adventure in a realm custom built for their native chain. And if we compare the TVL of Avalanche, which they're expanding into, which sits at 12.25 billion, to Harmony's TVL, which is 591 million. By the way, most of this comes from the DeFi Kingdoms game. The thought being, if they were able to accrue this much TVL with 80 to 90% of it being within DeFi Kingdom, what's going to happen when they expand into Avalanche, which already has a TVL of 12.25 billion? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I mean, if they're successful, which I think they will be, you're going to see DeFi Kingdoms on Avalanche basically become a liquidity black hole. You're going to see liquidity shift from the dominant automated market makers like Pangolin and Trader Joe into the automated market maker built within DeFi Kingdoms. Because typically what you see happen, of course there's going to be exceptions out there, is automated market makers will have very robust liquidity mining incentives that'll draw in a huge amount of TVL. And then when the yields come down, some of that liquidity will leave the automated market maker and go elsewhere. And part of that is because the governance token for the respective automated market maker ends up getting inflated away and the price goes down, therefore the yields also go down. And if they want to increase the yields, they have to increase emissions, further inflating away the token and causing the price to plummet. But with DeFi Kingdom, they have their own automated market maker, but when it comes to their governance token, or utility token, they've actually created an in-game economy that incentivizes people to buy and hold the token. And on top of that, the rewards that you're earning in the pool get locked up. That emits tokens to yield farmers, and these yield farmers are able to instantly just dump the tokens. So demand, reduced dumping, causes the price to appreciate, and as a result, they're able to sustain their high yields, attracting even more TVL. Number 2, increased demand on Jewel and Hero NFTs. That's pretty straightforward. Lower barrier to entry for new participants. I think this is huge. In fact, I was telling my Discord members this as soon as they announced their plans to expand into Avalanche. Currently, the cheapest you can buy Hero for is 35 Jewel. At $10, that's over $350. And if you want to buy a Gen 0, which has a fixed supply, you would have to pay over 5,000 Jewel tokens. So by expanding into Avalanche, it allows new participants to enter the ecosystem without feeling like they've missed out on the opportunity. And if you look at the volume and you compare it to another giant like Axie, you can see that currently, even without the expansion, the volume sits at 267 million. Imagine what's going to happen when they expand into Avalanche and you have this influx of a new cohort of users, presumably individuals that have a lot of liquidity tied up on Avalanche, enter the DeFi ecosystem and start playing the game. And by the way, they're not going to just stop at Avalanche. Avalanche is just the first expansion. I feel confident in saying that there's a high probability that they expand into other chains within the year. Now let's go ahead and shift the conversation to talking about Sammy's reasons for being excited about the expansion. This we kind of just touched on. New chains equals new TVL, new player base equals more adoption equals increased value of DeFi Kingdom economy across all chains. Current holders will qualify for airdrops leading up to the launch. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth repeating. The best way you can position yourself for the expansion, in my opinion, is buying the Jewel token and staking it. Thirdly, people will have to buy Jewel to get Crystal for initial bootstrapping of the Crystal supply. This will raise the price of Jewel. So on December 2nd, somebody asked Frisky what will happen if people just dump their Jewel for Crystal. His response to this would be counterintuitive because the only way to get Crystal initially will be to hold Jewel and stake it. If your strategy is to sell Jewel, you will have a bad time. Everything we do will be to expand the utility of Jewel. And what I'm about to read now is just theoretical. There's no guarantee this is going to happen, but this is Sammy's opinion of what could take place. So yes, there will be some airdropping of Crystal, but the official DeFi Kingdom announcement, the FAQ and dev statements indicate that the main source of Crystal supply initially will be emitted from the gardens, just like Jewel was when DeFi K launched on Harmony. So this means if the people holding $22 billion worth of AVAX and $12 billion worth of TVL on Avalanche want their hands on Crystal, they have to buy Jewel. That's called demand. What happens when the demand is greater than the supply? Price goes up. This will likely manifest itself in multiple ways. Either the very small amount of liquidity for Jewel on AVAX's DEX right now will be so small that any meaningful demand, heavy volume will drive the price on AVAX DEXs so high that smart investors will be able to buy cheap on Harmony, bridge their Jewel over to AVAX and sell there. Or AVAX holders will come to Harmony and buy here, both of which will create upward price movement, see more on arbitrage opportunities below. So here, Sammy is basically talking about the arbitrage opportunity. Personally, I'm just going to go ahead and stake my Jewel tokens and sell Crystal into an asset that I'm also very bullish on, for example, Luna, and then go ahead and stake that in the garden. I mean, if I have the time, I may look into the arbitrage opportunities, but for me, given how busy I am, this would be the easiest way to maximize my returns. Because number one, I get to keep exposure to Jewel, which should in theory keep going up as the demand goes up. And number two, I'm earning passive income on it because I'm earning crystal airdrops. And then when I have time, I could easily take that crystal, de-risk a little bit, because initially I would imagine that the price would be really high because there's not that many crystal tokens, but because people are getting them for free, that should create some dilution and the price at some point should go down. So in anticipation of that happening, I'd rather lock in some of the gains, provide liquidity, and earn some yield. And just like on Harmony, people who are early liquidity providers are going to be able to enjoy the fattest yields. And by the way, that's my tentative strategy if you guys wanted to keep up to date with everything I'm doing. And number two, make sure you guys head over to my private Discord, which is linked in the description below. And lastly, Sammy talks about arbitrage opportunities. I just covered one of them. Here's an arbitrage opportunity that I didn't think of, and it's regarding the heroes. Hero floor prices are higher on Crystalville than Serendale because there's not enough heroes there yet, and many more players wanting heroes on Crystalville. Serendale players can bridge over heroes over to Avalanche and sell the heroes at a higher floor price. Savvy Avalanche players could head over to Serendale, buy heroes there, and bridge them back. This can and would continue until floor prices are relatively equal and there's no more just for price difference opportunities. Now, I'm not sure how soon the bridges for the heroes are going to be up. Personally, I was thinking about buying some floors just because if you get this new influx of users, even though heroes outside of Gen 0 are inflationary, there isn't a fixed supply of them. I figured, at least acutely, we could see the floors rise up quickly. And over time, post the expansionary phase, when the internal game economy goes into contraction, eventually the market forces will bring the floors down to their fair market value. I haven't committed to this, but I'm thinking about buying some floors, holding them until we expand into Avalanche, and a week or two into the Avalanche expansion, I was going to go ahead and dump all of them. This way I could make huge multiples because number one, I'll get multiples on my Jewel. And also during that time, I suspect the price of Jewel itself is going to be going up. So let's say in theory, I buy something and the floor goes up by a factor of 3. And Jewel during that time also goes up by a factor of 3. I've basically made 9x in a very short period of time. So if I were you guys, I would take some time, read and consume as much information as you can, because I'm sure many of you guys will come up with strategies that aren't mentioned in this write-up or mentioned in this video. And given how highly anticipated this expansion is, by spending time, energy, and money, you could capitalize on this opportunity to potentially get huge returns. Now, given how busy I'm working on these crypto projects and my full-time job, it might take me a while to produce another update video on DeFi Kingdom. So if you're enjoying the insights and you wanted to get my moves in real time and benefit from all the knowledge that you're going to gain from being around experienced crypto and DeFi investors, then I would strongly encourage you guys to check out my Patreon. Even if you join the lowest tier for just $20 a month, number one, you'll get the free version of my paid newsletter. Number two, you'll get access to my private channels where I publish my moves in real time. We have a DeFi analyst who updates us with changes that he's making in his portfolio, and a few other perks that I think you guys will find super interesting. Or if you wanted to streamline your learning about DeFi, GameFi, and the metaverse, or maybe you just enjoy my insights and you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me, by joining one of the higher tiers that you see here, you'll not only get the benefits in the lower tier, but you'll also be able to get on a call with me and have a one-on-one dialogue. If you feel like any of these services would benefit you, make sure you go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. Well, that pretty much wraps up today's content. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is CryptoOneStop signing out. I'll talk to you folks next time. Bye.